All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something literally all of us deal with. It's exhausting, it's universal, and it's all about making what might be the hardest journey you'll ever take. I'm talking about the 18 inches from your noisy, crowded head down to a quiet, open heart. Sounds super short, right? Just a foot and a half. But if you've ever actually tried to make that crossing when your mind is racing, well, you know it can feel like trying to jump the Grand Canyon. So let's kick things off with part one, the restless mind, and what we call the illusion of thinking.
Listen, if you struggle with overthinking, you've got to know you are not alone in this. It's just so deeply human. There's this very specific type of suffering that doesn't even need a real-life crisis to keep going, you know? No fresh wound, no actual enemy in the room. It survives entirely on memory and anticipation. And man, it can completely ruin a perfectly good Tuesday afternoon or keep you tossing and turning all night. We usually call it worry or overthinking, but the clinical term? It's rumination. And actually, that word comes straight from the animal kingdom. Think about ruminants, cows, sheep, deer. Biologically, they have stomachs that literally return half-digested food back up to their mouths to be chewed a second, third, or fourth time. For a cow, absolute biological genius for getting nutrients out of tough grass. But when we apply that exact same mechanism to the human mind, yeah, the metaphor gets pretty uncomfortable pretty fast. We're talking about a psyche that just keeps regurgitating half-digested experiences right back into your conscious attention. You chew on it again and again, not because you're actually getting any new insight, but simply because your mind literally doesn't know how to hit the brakes. The loop runs simply because it's already running.
And that brings up a really crucial distinction. Rumination is not thinking. It is actually just the illusion of thinking. It's like your mind is putting on this little costume of productivity while actually getting absolutely nowhere. Think about the stark difference in movement here. True reflection, it's purposeful. It actually moves. It takes in information, weighs it out, comes to a conclusion about the present moment, and then, this is the key part, it releases. Rumination, on the other hand, just circles. It's compulsive. You keep arriving at the exact same coordinates, applying the exact same anxious scrutiny, and landing in the exact same unresolved place. It's literally your thinking faculty turning entirely against itself. Which brings us to part two, the anatomy of the loop and what your mind is actually doing behind the scenes. So what's actually happening under the hood here? Well, psychological research essentially splits repetitive negative thinking into two alternating camps. On one side, you've got worry. This is all about the future. It's the dread, the mental rehearsal of every single thing that might go wrong, the catastrophizing about stuff that hasn't even happened yet. Then, on the other side, you've got rumination proper. This is past-directed. It's endlessly replaying what you said at that party, what you messed up, what was lost, what you failed at. And let's be real, most of us just bounce back and forth between the two, right? The past feeds the dread projects into the future, and then the future circles right back to hunt for evidence from the past. Because of this, the loop isn't just a simple circle you're running on. It's actually more like a double helix of regret and fear. And the craziest, most defining characteristic of this double helix is just how completely involuntary it feels. You didn't invite the thought in. It just showed up. And it arrived carrying the exact same emotional weight, demanding the exact same attention it demanded an hour ago. When you're stuck in this loop, you aren't doing something with your mind. Your mind is doing something to you. Tragically, you, the thinker, become the object of the thought instead of the subject controlling it.
Now, if you've ever felt alone in this, please don't. Ancient wisdom universally agrees on how formidable this dynamic is. The Buddhist tradition, for instance, calls it papancha, which is this wild tendency of the mind to spin an endless web of story out of just a single perception. The Stoics, they hit the nail on the head by identifying that it's our interpretation of an event, not the event itself, that messes with us. And that interpretation can run completely independent of reality. And the Sufi tradition speaks of the nafs, which is the restless ego constantly re-narrating its own wounds. Basically, every wisdom path that has ever taken humanity seriously has recognized this exact same age-old obstacle.
All right, part three, the hidden cost. Let's talk about what rumination actually takes from us. We've diagnosed the loop, but we really need to look at the severe psychological and spiritual toll this takes. And that brings us back to this number, 18. Those 18 inches between the head and the heart. Recovery and spiritual traditions treat the restless mind like an absolute emergency. Why? Because it hijacks the exact faculty we need to make that journey, our attention. See, to move from just intellectual knowledge up in your head to a truly lived, embodied understanding in your heart, that requires a profound openness to the present moment. And rumination, it systematically destroys that openness. You might know intellectually that you are loved, but you can't feel it in your heart. You might know you're forgiven, but you're carrying around all this guilt anyway. The knowledge just gets stranded in your head because that 18-inch channel is completely gridlocked by your mind's own traffic. And honestly, it goes even deeper than that. The mind in a ruminative loop is not some neutral observer. It's an anxious editor. It actively selects evidence that confirms its own central narrative, which is actually kind of terrifying when you really think about it. Chronic rumination literally distorts your perception. If your loop story is that you're inadequate, your anxious editor will comb through your memories, totally suppress anything positive you've ever done, and amplify only the threat signals. It literally constructs the anxious reality it lives in. This is exactly why you can almost never just argue your way out of a loop. So how do we get out? Let's move to part 4, escaping the whirlpool and the paradoxical exit. We're officially shifting from diagnosing the pain to finding some actual relief. So I have to ask, how do you escape the whirlpool? The Zen tradition has a brilliant metaphor for this. When you are caught in a physical whirlpool out in the water, swimming aggressively against the current doesn't get you out, right? It just exhausts you and keeps you stuck right where you are. The harder you grip the problem, the stronger the pull. The only way out isn't to fight the water directly, but to change your angle to it. You literally have to let your body find another current. Escaping rumination works the exact same way. Paradoxically, the exit is not through the mind. You absolutely cannot outthink overthinking. Trying to use more thinking to stop thinking, that's just throwing more fuel onto the fire.
Let's break this down into 3 actionable steps. Step 1 is recognition. Now, this isn't about analyzing things or judging yourself. You do not get mad at yourself here. You simply notice with clear eyes that the loop has started. You're just taking a slight step back to observe. Step 2 is redirection to the body. You anchor yourself back to the present. Maybe it's your breath, maybe it's feeling your feet on the floor. And then step 3 is disengagement without suppression. In cognitive therapy, they call this defusion. In Zen, it's called not adding a second thought to the first. You let the thought arrive, sure, but you simply decline the invitation to follow it. You decline to elaborate on it. You decline to catastrophize. You just let the wave pass.
I actually want to hover on step 2 for just a second because it really holds the secret to this whole process. The body is always in the present moment. Always. The loop never is. It's forever trapped in the past or the future. So returning to the physical sensation of your feet on the floor, that is not just some cute distraction technique. It is a vital relocation. That channel from the head to the heart physically runs right through your body. The body is your way back.
Which leads us beautifully into part 5, clearing the channel from noise to presence. So, what's the actual reward for doing all this incredibly difficult interior work? Well, first things first, we have to drop the shame. Seriously, if you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, please remember this fundamental truth. Rumination is not a character flaw. It is a human inheritance. It is not a failure of your discipline or your intelligence. It is simply your mind's well-meaning but totally misguided and clumsy attempt to find safety and control through endless analysis. You have to look at your own restless mind with compassion, not contempt. Because honestly, if you judge yourself for overthinking, congratulations, you've just started a brand new loop. But when you practice this, recognition, redirection, and disengagement, when that loop finally quiets down, even just partially, this incredible spaciousness opens up. Things that were just dry intellectual data points up in your head finally travel those 18 inches and find real ground. Gratitude stops being just a nice concept and actually becomes a felt condition. Forgiveness stops being a logical decision and becomes a real physical release. Love stops being a conclusion and becomes a living, breathing presence in the room with you. That is what it truly means to clear the channel.
I want to leave you with this final, really provocative thought from our source material. Release, it turns out, is the hardest thing the mind ever does. And it is not done by the mind at all. The channel between your head and your heart, it already exists. You don't have to build it. It just needs to be cleared. So the next time that loop starts running, I challenge you, stop analyzing the water, change your angle, and step back into the present moment. Because once you reclaim all that energy currently trapped in the loop, what might you be capable of actually creating?